I want to ask really quickly before we let you get away about this new record. There is always something interesting going on under the surface on your records. Nonagon Infinity had that infinity loop going, which was such a fun and brilliant idea. And I understand that you were exploring microtonal tuning. And first off, I want to know what that is, and then where did you come up with that idea?
Sure. Yeah, as you can see, we kind of refretted a bunch of guitars and bass guitar and kind of retuned some keyboards and harmonica to play some notes that aren't usually easily accessible on a regular Western instrument. I was messing around with a bağlama, which is a Turkish stringed instrument, which has kind of movable and non sort of specifically fixed frets. And yeah, I guess I started writing some songs on this instrument, and they had sounds in it that are just not easily replicated with an electric guitar at all. So at first I thought we were making a bağlama record, and it sort of became more and more obvious that it was going to be more fun to play the songs on electric guitar. So the initial idea was basically to refret some guitars to play these songs that I wrote on bağlama. And then what happened was all the songs that I wrote on bağlama got kind of discarded, and we sort of wrote new songs on these guitars. And it's not really, it ended up some kind of weird in-between place. It's not sort of exactly Turkish folk music at all, but it sort of has a loose inspiration from that. I mean, they would fret them completely different to what we did, but that was the inspiration. Yeah, I mean, there was a serendipitous moment where a friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm going to start building guitars. It would be cool if you want to work on a guitar together." So I sort of said, "Hey, yeah, that's cool. I kind of got this idea. What about we build this guitar and kind of fret it sort of unusually?" So that was kind of where this guitar came from.
And that is the Flying Microtonal Banana, is that right?
Yeah, which we named the Flying Microtonal Banana because it's sort of like a flying V-ish shape, and it's microtonal fretboard, and it's yellow. So, getting this guitar was I suppose the inspiration for making all of these songs, all but maybe one of them were written on this guitar. So. Yeah, I mean, and then once we kind of had a few ideas, we had to sort of modify a few other instruments, which we kind of just got from we sort of just bought the cheapest instruments we could possibly find, and we sort of mess them up, because once you do that, there's kind of no turning back. You're sort of ruining instruments in a sense.
What we did was I set a budget for Cookie and Joey and Lucas to go buy an electric guitar and two electric guitars and a bass, and it's $400 each, Australian dollars, which doesn't buy you much over here. But that was the point. It was like, we're going to kind of ruin these guitars. We're going to have to punch a bunch more frets into them. So we bought these super cheap, funny instruments. Two Telecaster copies, which Joe and Cookie played. One's like a Greco thing, which was actually quite cool. One's I can't even remember. It might not have even had a brand on it. Lucas was a Gibson with a V, which I think was an Indian Gibson copy from the 80s or something. It's actually very cool looking, horrible sounding instrument. Anyway, we refretted all of these to kind of match with the Flying Microtonal Banana.
Flying Microtonal Banana. It's not a real banana. It's made by a friend called Zach. He rules. This is his little setup. We had this idea of adding some secret notes, kind of sort of out of tune, kind of half quarter tones. So we've kind of been making this record to be quarter tone zone. This
ain't no Flying Banana. This is a premium Jason brand, foot model, gaffer neck, brown bridge. So if you ever fucked around with open tunings on your own little tacker, listen a bit of John Butler, a bit of Xavier Rudd, That type of stuff was, came quite easy, it's quite good. But if you actually add a little half fret in between a fret that's already established on the guitar, you get these interesting little transient notes, bipartisan by nature. They will really kind of take you to that next level of musician. And really, what else can you say?
There's my drums. They're tuned to microtones, similar to the guitars actually, as you can tell. And this is Eric.
So this is my drum kit, I guess. I think my kick drum got taken away because I lost my privileges.
Lukey.
Put a couple of extra frets in there, so it sounds a bit out of tune. That's the secret behind this album.
I'm Ambrose. Strangers call me Kenny. This is my MIDI. These are the keys to our heart.
So you didn't use your regular instruments?
Yeah, exactly. And we didn't know what we were doing. Like, we didn't know whether it was going to be one song or whether it was going to be a whole record at the time, or it was going to be an experiment which was going to fail.
And we did a thing that we hadn't done before, which we have done since, but we hadn't done it before at this point. We put mics in our rehearsal room, in our little jam room thing. We just set up mics on everything. We recorded on just a little 8-track on a little half-inch Tascam reel-to-reel machine, and we just basically put a mic on everything and just kind of summed it down to tape and had everything kind of good to go. And then each day we would jam a new song from scratch, and then by 4 or 5 o'clock we would tape it. And that was the tape. That was the take. Every single song is that. Every single song is we learnt it that day, and by the end of the day, we recorded it. And we maybe did 15 or 16 tracks like that. They were all instrumental at this stage. I had vocal ideas, but we didn't track vocals like that. Ambrose also was working with some harmonicas which were microtonally tuned, and some keyboards which we did some tricks on to hit the notes, which you can do on quite a few keyboards. You can sort of do microtonal dorky re-pitching of individual notes. Anyway, it was just a beautiful experience, and it felt really way more natural than it should, considering how kind of sort of bizarre the concept is.
So yeah, fortunately we made a record, and then we kind of thought it would be cool to tour it. So it's all kind of just been one foot in front of the other with this record. You
think you might write more songs in this tuning? I mean, now you've got the instruments.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of already, we've written a few other songs, not a record's worth, since making Flying Microtonal Banana. So there might be a record worth, or there might be some songs that pop up here and there. Actually, there definitely will be some songs that pop up here and there as well, but maybe another record in the future, but we haven't thought that far.
You guys have got another album, Flying Microtonal Banana, coming out on the 24th. Someone was saying that you guys have planned 5 albums for this year. Is that true?
I mean, I think we've got ideas for 5. You know, I hope we can do that. We've got Flying Microtonal Banana kind of done, and we've got 2 others that are in the works at the moment. Beyond that, it's a bit too futuristic at this point.
How can you plan 5? Like, do you have songs that you write and then you think, oh, they're not quite for this album, but potentially we could throw them into this folder?
Album 3.
Yeah, which is potentially a different style or whatever.
You should see the grid that Stu wrote about 6 months ago. It's pretty tech. There's ideas there.
What's the grid look like?
Yeah, what's the grid?
It's more just like a plan for the 5 albums, so that I guess once we have the rough concepts in our head, then it's kind of easier to achieve. But 3 of them are pretty much done, so...
Eric, you're in trouble for talking about the grid. That was Stu's secret little trick.
No, I just don't remember referring to it as a grid.
It's just I think it was like a shopping list of what he wants.
It sounds good. It sounds efficient as the grid, though. I'm sure that will fuel a lot of theories on Reddit, because there is the King Gears subreddit where there are some insane theories being put forward, particularly, I mean, this is classic internet, really, but someone is trying to connect all of the King Gears albums with a kind of through-line narrative. Can you give any kind of credence or pour water on those ideas?
I like these ideas. I feel like...
Before we started a band, we knew what the last album was going to be and what the first album was going to be. They're all connected.
They're being more and more connected, and the second album we're going to put out this year links some things too, and is the most narrative-driven record that we've ever made.
So when you said they're all connected, Lewis and my eyes just lit up. How are they all connected?
They all kind of exist in this parallel universe that they may be from different times and from different places, but they all can coexist in a meaningful kind of way.
Well, have you seen like the grid that person has drawn that is like, it looks kind of like the scrolls of a mad person, but it's got like an arrow to a line that says Nonagon Infinity opens the door, and then at the beginning of the Nonagopocalypse, and then it's like, my theory is that the Nonagopocalypse was created by a higher being, in brackets Satan, and his servants, in brackets devils, and then it's just like invisible faces, reptilians, rattlesnake, vultures. And it goes.
I know
on.
you're making it sound, Lewis. I know you're trying to making it sound really absurd right now, but you should know is that it's actually not absurd at all.
It's bang on.
It's bang on. There's connections. It's all kind of going to slowly reveal itself. Murder of the Universe itself is 3 distinct chapters. By far the most narrative-driven thing that we've ever done. And it kind of draws on other stuff that we've done, and it sort of exists in that world. Humanity's greatest threat, maybe at this point in time, is potentially, AI. We're all pretty fascinated with the modern world, and it's kind of cool to exist within it and with outside of it as well. I mean, I guess the only thing I can say is it's stimulating. I don't know what else I could say beyond that. All the concepts or the ideas or whatever behind the records have all just been jump-off points. Just kind of add some sort of meaning into, our own personal miniature universes. The point was, it's like the self-replicating robot kind of concept, right? Like, imagine if he was so into pizza that he, turned the universe into pizza. I think that's kind of the idea. For some reason, it seemed, relevant to Be Vomit at the time.
Any insatiable desire.
Any insatiable desire, yeah.
Shout out to Vomit Coffin, by the way. I mean, I can't let you just drop that in without recognizing the track title alone. I mean, come on.
Well, the track title actually has a backstory as well. The backstory to the track title is my little brother Lockie and a few of his friends, including my cousin Tom Mackenzie and a bunch of other people. I actually can't remember the exact lineup, but it was just a lot of people that were around our family house when we were young, early teenage years, I'd say. They had a band that would rehearse in the garage, in the parents' garage,
and it was like a parody metal band. And I think they were quietly taking the piss out of me and my friends and the bands that we were playing in. But yeah, it was like a parody, sort of like they were taking the piss out of everything, and just that actually were having an amazingly beautiful, awesome time as well. But anyway, their band was called Vomit Coffin, and I'll like never forget that, because it was just so perfect. It was like, this is amazing. I'm going to use that in something one day. And so yeah, one day it made sense.
It finally made it.
Please welcome all the way from Melbourne, Australia, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Lord of lightning shifts his gaze, points his strong finger our way. Electricity for space, leaves destruction in our way.
Yeah, I think it originally started with 4, not 5, which is kind of funny. But we had 4 fairly distinct ideas kind of leading into the year last year. And there was a couple of songs that we were playing live even in 2016. We're doing this stuff that kind of came straight from Nonagon Infinity, sort of like the Murder of the Universe kind of thing, a little bit of Lord of Lightning, and those kind of songs sort of came straight out of Nonagon Infinity, and that sort of felt like the next most kind of absurd extreme version of that record. And then Crumbling Castle was sort of in a way related to that as well, but we were kind of messing around with this polymetric kind of like thing as well, and that sort of felt like its own idea. And then we were messing around with these microtonal guitars as well, and there was 1 or 2 of those songs kind of came, you know, about pretty early on, and I think we were playing Rattlesnake towards the end of 2016 as well, and we'd been touring with Mild High Club all throughout 2015 and 16, I think, from memory. So we had this idea to make a record with them.
All the way from Melbourne, Stu McKenzie.
Polygon Wonderland. Am I saying that incorrectly?
It doesn't matter. It's not a real word. You say it however you want.
Is it not a real word? Okay, Polygon Wonderland. This was the record that you'd made, and you just put out, didn't you? You sort of encouraged people to like release it, put it wherever you want. If you want to put it on your record label, put it on your record label. If you want to do a tape, do a tape. If you want to, just share it around. What was the thinking behind that?
To put my mind back in that place, it was 2017. We did 5 records that year, which was
insane.
Very insane. Yeah. It was like very fun though, and definitely learnt a lot over that time. We had started like a lot of these songs, and we'd recorded like a decent amount of material in 2016 too. As I think there's probably some stuff recorded for that year in 2015 as well. And they were sketched out by at least early 2016. So it's cool. Like, we didn't make 5 records and release all of them within 12 months. We just released them in 12 months. But as we started to like release all these records, I did start to feel uncomfortable about asking people for money or asking people to buy shit constantly.
it's just not why we do it. Like, truly, it's really not why we do it. And I just would never want that to feel like the motivation. I think it would just instantly crush the whole project. And I just felt, I was feeling extremely grateful that we were playing shows and people were coming, and I just thought, I don't know, like, I think everyone's doing enough. Like, we're already selling 4 albums, so it made sense to make the free one Polygon Dwyerland, and it was the obvious thing to do a free one. Polygon Dwyerland was the one we chose because out of the 5 we were doing that year, it was the one that felt like, I know I keep saying this word consider, but it's the only word I can think of using. It's the word I've used to describe that record since the very start. But I think it's because it's less haphazard, and it's much more slow brushstrokes and kind of just thinking about the whole puzzle before we started. I think we thought in our heads it would actually be more stripped back than it ended up, but I think we realized that you can add more layers than you think while still hearing each one and making sure they're still serving a function. But anyway, we started talking about doing this thing free, and basically everyone we work with, which wasn't many people at that point, and still isn't a huge amount of people, but everyone was like, oh, can you just do like Bandcamp, like pay what you want? Or why don't you do, why don't we just press like 1,000 copies and then maybe like make it a free download? Or why don't you just do this or that? And I was like, no, like it's free. Like, how free can we make this? It's like literally free. Like, it's not mine. It's not ours. It belongs to the universe, belongs to the world. And so it's sort of like an experiment in how truly free can you make something? And surprisingly hard, and like surprising amount of hurdles to do that thing. But we tried our best, and it sort of inspired this whole bootleg thing that we've been doing.
Have you seen any copies that people put out or put together, like out and about on tour or whatever? Have you come across the record in these different ways that people have distributed it?
I've seen so many. Like, I would have seen at least 100 different ones, like maybe 200 different versions of Polygon Dwyerland. Occasionally I will check Discogs and see how many it's gotten up to, but it's like several hundred logged separate variants from different labels. I really can't get it around my head. Can't get my head around it that we actually made that record, because it truly just doesn't feel like ours.
Yeah, I mean, it was just as much of an experiment for us. We were kind of curious to see what would happen. We were kind of interested. And we were sort of giggling about it as well. We're like, this is a pretty weird thing to do. I don't know what's going to happen. But there's been a lot of, there's been 180 versions or so, apparently, which is cool. We've got quite a few, a lot of nice people have handed us records and said, here, we pressed this. It's crazy. It's overwhelming. It's really cool.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. I had no idea what would happen or if people would embrace the idea, but it's some of the kind of releases that have come out have just been mind-blowing. It's been on 8-track cartridges. I've seen floppy disk version.
Yes.
Any format you can think of, it's definitely been released on. I think it's been pressed over 200 times around the world in every country you can think of.
When you were doing music industry at RMIT, Eric, did anyone ever say to you, hey, you should make 5 albums in a year and the second last one just give it away for free and free of copyright? Did anyone ever say that to you?
I think that's the exact opposite of what every person we've ever met in music has told us. So, which has kind of always been that's always what Gizzard has been, just the exact opposite of what we should do.
So those 4 records, the first 4 records, really had just a little bit of an idea for each record before we started the year, and then it's like, okay, well, instead of kind of building a record, out of these kind of like individual songs, these songs feel too disjointed. They feel like they don't belong together. Let's separate them and then build a record around these individual songs and kind of keep, make some siblings for them or something. And then the 5th one, Gumboot Soup, was sort of like, I think early on in the year it started to be apparent that there was songs that maybe didn't fit on any of the records, and there was also some microtonal stuff that, because we sort of made that we finished that record first at least, but there's a few songs from that record that Greenhouse and All Is Known that felt like they still needed some love, and it felt like, okay, well, let's do a 5th record with kind of like all this other stuff that still needs love but hasn't been given it yet.
I'm betting there'll be another record in the future. There's never any lack of King Gizzard records, which is a wonderful thing. You're also super busy touring, and I'm curious if there's going to be a 2017 edition of GizFest.
Yeah, there definitely will be. Eric is the boss of the GizFest. Eric over here. G'day, mate.
On one of the drum kits.
But he's probably going to keep it pretty tight-lipped, but,
All right, we won't make any secrets come out now. But
What do you think, Eric?
It's happening in November.
Oh.
There you go.
There, it's out now. GizFest, if you want to plan a trip to Australia, that would be a good time to go.